We're now going to go to a completely opposite side. We're going back into the world of architecture and construction. We're going to go to Scott Kent with Intelligent Engineering. Scott's on booth B04, and Intelligent Engineering have lightweight terracing systems which are versatile, sustainable, and award-winning. And I'll let Scott do more.
Thanks very much for spending some time here with us. I thought I'd start I know you clap for us when we finish, but Neil, Sam, and Alan have done a great job. Last year I was here for this event. It just gets better as we go forward. So can we just start by giving them a hand, because they don't get enough appreciation. Okay, so I've given versions of this presentation to contractors, consultants, architects, the whole body. And last year when I did this, I started with a question, which was, how many people here in this group here are the specifiers, the consultants, or the engineers? Just one. Okay, and then the other spectrum, to two. Thanks, Rob. And two, the developers, so the people who actually look at the big picture. That side. Okay, so again, one. So everyone else is somewhere in the middle. And that's what makes these 7-minute presentations, now 6 minutes and 6 seconds, a bit challenging. So we sort of have to look, do I spend a bit of time talking about the detail, the nuts and the bolts of a system like ours, which I'll come to in a minute, or do we look at the macro view? The challenge for me is the same for all the other fellow presenters. You have to embody everything in the now 5 minutes. So what I do is just take you through a quick journey of what our product is. And I haven't really said what it is yet, but it's a sandwich plate system technology. So it's a civil engineering product. It's a structural product. It's fairly simple in its intent. It's 2 plates of steel with a polyurethane core. And it just basically replicates either a stiffened steel component or a concrete component. And there's a picture on the board, but I carry around a small piece in my pocket, and that's all it is. So that's what we call a sandwich plate system 424. It's really light, it's very weight, easy for me to carry around. It only weighs this thing maybe a few grams, but we have 1 ton of it over there at BO4. So I hope you come and see it after you've seen the rest of my presentation. What we do with SPS, we have a series of civil engineering applications. You find it in buildings where we look at the structural floors, sometimes the shear cores. It originated in the marine environment, so we used to do overlay for ships. It led to more of a civil application for bridges, and one very successful application is what we're all here for this week is stadiums, and for us it's the terracing. In fact, if you're not sure what the terracing is, although it's probably obvious, it's all the structural seat support, all the rakers, the seats, the stands that basically support the seating that surrounds us here. So back in 2006, we looked at the application of SPS. What do we do with it? How do we use it for terracing? And if we folded the steel plate, if we just made it a little bit more of a bend in this component, it allows us to make the risers. Some people call them the steps. But basically, it's the component you can see in the screen. And the idea was, if we could make it lighter than concrete, then those of us here could build faster, and it would allow us to accelerate programs and basically bring benefits such as speed and time to the construction environment for Stadia. So the idea went from a sheet of paper to a real application, and the first job we did was ironically for Ascot. It was a terrace structure that was already in place, and there's an interesting background story that the sight lines were wrong. No one accounted for the royalty and the top hats that they would wear. So they had to reconfigure the terracing. So what we did is we simply overlaid the existing terraces with the SPS. But it proved very successful. We worked with some high-profile specifiers, and in the last 7 years, we've managed to sort of progress the product, really attacking the details, but making sure we're servicing the overall desire of Stadia projects. So this is a slide which really just begs a lot of questions in terms of construction. And I think the main thing we're trying to get across to people who might look at using it is it allows you to do challenging things. It's an enabling technology. So this structure here, when we look inside, typically a stadium would have to wait for the terraces, the heavy concrete components to be installed, then close up the roof, then wrap, and then you can do your first and second fix. With SPS, because the system is so light, it allows the terraces to be sort of taken completely off the critical path. So although it's an important component and it's very influential in the program, The fact that you could actually close out the building and then with an indoor crane build the terracing just makes the ability to design and program your stadium much more flexible. And that's important to the engineer at the state of design, to the architect who's specifying it, and to the developer who might have the opportunity to open early. So very influential in terms of time. But that's sort of a macro aspect. If you dive into the details, then that little bolted connection I showed you at the very beginning allows the system such as SPS to be unbolted when the job is over, which brings you back to the macro world. We're sort of bouncing back and forth. And this picture here in the slide, I think that follows, addresses one of the key benefits I think is becoming more and more important in these Stadia conferences and in stadiums in general. That's sustainability and legacy. And I was talking about that with one of my good friends and colleagues, Rob, last night, and he also said, you know, you're also addressing corporate social responsibility. And these aren't things that are easy for a civil engineering application to address, but I think we do a good job. And the pictures here, if you don't know, SPS was used in the Aquatic Centre, London 2012. And although, like all these iconic events, which last 2 weeks, it had to have a permanent feel. The advantage with SPS is that when it was demounted, it's able to be used in a completely new environment without having to reconstruct. So to make it simpler, the terracing you see here that's in yellow is now in service somewhere in the US. And the contractor ticked the top box, which was not recycling, but full reusability. In fact, that contractor in the UK, Balfour Beatty, has used it again since, and as we all know, repeat clients are a great testament to how we can progress. So the details, and I'm not going to bore you with all the small points, but just if we go through a couple of things, as the technology progresses and as we have more projects and as the likes of yourselves ask us, can we do this, can we do that, we fine-tuned it. So we're addressing things like seismic loading. So we have the ability, although it's a structural terrace meant to be butt-to-butt joints, we can get a 300 millimeter differential component, so we have a seismic aspect. We're punching holes in it, so when the components come to site, and everyone's talking about prefabrication, so all the openings are in, so we can pre-position drainage holes, seat connections, railings, all the things that sort of aren't natural fits for the standard terrace, but are important to the rest of our colleagues here who deal with all the other aspects. It all gets rolled into our system quite easily. Underfloor heating, another thing that's very important now for either outdoor stadiums, and we're looking at a lot of the stuff in Doha. They have to get the coolant in. Concrete, I'm not trying to belittle concrete, but working with steel is probably a little bit simpler. It's just a hole, plenum comes in, air comes out, it's done, as opposed to the preforming that's needed in concrete. Where we're going, and maybe reflects a lot of what the other speakers in these conferences are discussing, is transformation. What are we going to do in the future? How are we going to have these iconic events, and yet when the event after 2 weeks is over, restructure, remove, everything. And with SPS, it's so lightweight, it's very demountable, it could be just recycled and reused into a different part of a community. So that's really my quick pitch. I hope you come and see us. We do have that 1-ton piece of work which Sam and Neil have kind of let us drag into the stadium. We're in BO4. It's very, very thin, and I think you would surprise yourself when you jump up and down how solid it feels. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Scott. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me at these events how something like that can actually turn out with the presentation that he's managed to succinctly put together for us in 7 minutes to open your venue earlier. So when you look at it like that, it's well worth coming along to these events just to see how we bounce around from product to product and how they all help venue owners and specifiers and product manufacturers really do spend a lot of time and investment on the technology and the IT. So, and I can confirm it is very light as well.